Where's Nathan? Natalia just saw her husband with the maid. How did her life come to this point? She felt so devastated, trapped and miserable, silently laying in bed with the man she calls her husband, the man who is unfaithful and perverted. Natalia's life wasn't always like this. Three years ago, she was living in the small town of Rostov-Veliki in Russia, where she worked at a small cafe. It was there she first met Mr. Naftali Bush, a highly influential and wealthy man. He owned businesses in Russia, UK, and America. However, he was personally settled in UK and had come to Russia to handle some business. Mr. Naftali used to drop by the cafe every afternoon, and he and Natalia would often speak. He was very kind and nice. "Mr. Naftali, I got your usual ready." "Hello, sweetheart. How's everything?" "Just fine. Was actually wondering when you would drop by. I was looking forward to your cup of tea myself." Over the days, Mr. Naftali too became quite fond of Natalia. She was a decent, polite girl. And it was one day he offered Natalia a job at his company. Natalia was surprised. She didn't have the credentials, nor did he really know her, but he gave her such a big opportunity. Natalia happily accepted his offer, supposing he had probably chosen her since she was bilingual. It was while Natalia was working for Mr. Naftali that she was introduced to his son, Nathan. Nathan too had been on a trip visiting Russia. He lived in America and took care of his father's business there. It was ever since they met, Nathan was literally after her. He followed her around, asked her on dates, and gifted her with presents. "Come on, let's go out for some coffee. I'm kind of in the middle of work right now." "Well, you're also talking to the CEO, so shall we go?" Over his visits, Nathan and Natalia ended up flirting and spending a lot of time together. But it was soon that Mr. Naftali became aware of their secret relationship. When he confronted Nathan and Natalia about it, Nathan confessed his love, and Mr. Naftali accepted their relationship and arranged for their marriage. After the marriage, she and Nathan moved back to America and settled on their grand estate in Connecticut. Mr. Naftali, who lived in UK was constantly on the travel, rarely came to visit anymore. He was busy with his life. And Natalia and Nathan was busy building theirs. The house was beautiful and spacious, a garden out in the back, a large library on the third floor, a grand hall, and many bedrooms. The first few months had gone by in bliss. It was like every day was a honeymoon. Nathan took Natalia out on romantic dates and late-night yacht rides in the bay. However, he had many friends whom he spent a lot of time with. But Natalia didn't feel alone. She rearranged the house and surprised him by cooking this and that, and their married life seemed perfect. And now and then, Nathan threw lavish parties, where Natalia was introduced to his business partners and elite group of friends. "Natalia, mind to have a drink?" "Timothy, yeah, sure." Guys like Nathan never settle down. "Excuse me, are you trying to get me jealous?" Being jealous about Nathan is pointless. I was hoping Nathan wouldn't mind and get jealous about you." "What do you mean?" "I was hoping we could hang out sometimes. Enjoy ourselves, if you know what I mean." "You disgust me. I'm the wife of your best friend." "Let me know when you change your mind." As those months passed, Natalia realized Nathan was losing interest in her. And down the line, at some point, she had become nothing but a piece of furniture in Nathan's house. It seemed Nathan had no married life anymore. He was always coming home late, he was spending nights getting wasted at the casino, hanging out at nightclubs and enjoying other women. Natalia never questioned him. She was in doubt how to approach him. But the matter only worsened from there when he started going on his regular business trips. It was while he was away that Natalia got a message from Timothy. "This will probably help you change your mind." Natalia discovered Nathan's business trips were just vacations where he enjoyed himself with other beautiful women. She felt so betrayed and heartbroken, and just when life seemed like it was falling apart, she found out she was pregnant. Not knowing what to do, she called Mr. Naftali. "Mr. Naftali, there's something I'd like to speak to you about." "Yes, Natalia? Is everything okay?" "Nathan and I are expecting." "That's wonderful news. But there's something that's been troubling me." "What is it?" After listening to everything, Mr. Naftali tried to console Natalia. "Natalia, Nathan is young. This isn't unusual for a man in his position. He might be spending time with other women, but they have no status in his life or our family. You're his wife, and they are no one." Natalia wasn't content listening to Mr. Naftali. She was disgusted by Nathan's actions and hopelessness. She called her mother and tried to open up to her. "Natalia, if you were married somewhere else, the same thing could have happened. This is how men are, and women learn to accept and move on. You have a bright future, don't ruin it." Her mother too tried to convince her otherwise. But Natalia was no way convinced. She couldn't accept being with a man like this, raising a child with a man so lewd and perverted. But she tried to keep patience. Perhaps after the child would be born, it would bring change in Nathan. Nathan and Natalia grew even more distant, and it came to the point where Nathan was barely home. He had become a father, but he barely had any affection towards his son. Natalia was taking care of her child by herself, and the days were going by in which Natalia was distraught with her life. And tonight, she lay with her husband, who had just been with another woman, as if nothing happened. What am I going to do? Should I divorce him? If I leave him, where will I go? I haven't completed my studies, I don't have any money, I don't have a future without him. And if I try to expose him, I'll never win against him or his father. They would never let me see my son again. They're too powerful. This whole marriage was probably a setup. Mr. Naftali is no innocent man. He cunningly trapped me into this. And I, what a fool, I didn't even realize. 3 years ago, when Mr. Naftali was living in Russia, he had spotted Natalia at a small coffee shop and liked her. She seemed like a well-mannered, nice girl, so he started to search about her background. Mr. Naftali found she was from a respectful family. However, they weren't well-to-do, nor very educated. But Natalia was the perfect girl he was looking for to marry his son to. Mr. Naftali knew someone like Nathan would never settle for anyone. But even if he was with Natalia, a girl this poorly educated and from a minor background would never retaliate against him. Listen, Nathan, you want to enjoy, then enjoy. But I can't let my lineage end with you. You're my only son. Marry this girl, give me my grandson, and do whatever you want. She won't be a problem for you. How can I live like this? Or am I thinking too much of it? Should I too just have fun and simply be married to him merely by name? Should I call Timothy and say I'm ready? No, I can't do that to myself. I can't do that to my son. I can't sell myself because Nathan is a pig. Then, should I end my life? No, what would happen to my son? Nathan would never give Victor a second look. Victor would grow up in the hands of a stranger. And maybe I should end his life for ruining my life. No, I can never do that to Nathan. I really loved him. Depressed and shattered, Natalia closed her eyes and fell asleep. The next morning, she got up to see Nathan ready for work, the maid preparing the table. "Sir, your breakfast is served." "Thank you, Monica." Nathan casually ate his breakfast and smiled, seeing Natalia. "Sweetheart, I'll be late. Don't stay up for me," he said, as if nothing was wrong. Nathan arrived to work that morning, greeted by his assistant Rachel. She looked beautiful, as always. Every time Nathan saw her, he imagined the last time he had been with her. She was amazing. "Good morning, sir." "Morning, beautiful." But as soon as Nathan sat down in his office, an unsettling itch began in his private regions. Recently, he had been very uncomfortable. He didn't know why the itch wouldn't go. "Is everything all right, sir?" "Yeah, it's fine. I'll be right back." Nathan hurried off to the restroom to relieve that itch, but it only seemed to worsen. When Nathan returned home, he took a long, hot shower. Things like this happened to him before, but usually a long shower and some antiseptic would fix it. But this time, it wasn't getting better. Nathan had always been fearful of these diseases since he had been with so many women, but he always made sure to be careful. When he came out of the bathroom and took a look in the mirror, he was panicked to see swelling and redness, but assumed it was due to him itching so much. So Nathan applied some ointment and tried not to touch. But over the next few days, the itch soon turned to pain. And Nathan was concerned seeing blisters. The pain became so much that he was having trouble walking. "Sir, are you feeling unwell? Would you like to take the day off? I can handle things here." "No, that will be alright. Take a doctor's appointment for me." The following day, Nathan visited his doctor. "What is happening to me?" "Well, with your lifestyle, diseases like this aren't uncommon. But don't worry, I've prescribed some painkillers and an ointment. Make sure to keep your clothes clean and be careful." "But I have been careful." "Nathan, the truth is, there's no way you can guarantee if a person is safe." Nathan returned home, laying in bed, applying ice to numb the burning sensation as he had his pills. Since he had been keeping distance from Natalia, he had told her what happened. "It's just a rash. The doctor gave some meds and said to keep my clothes clean." "Why didn't you tell me before?" When Natalia heard, she insisted on specially cleaning Nathan's clothes herself instead of the maid. Nathan continued on with his treatment, but with every passing day his condition worsened. The rash worsened, the itch, the blisters. He was in so much pain that he needed to constantly have medicine applied and couldn't wear his undergarments anymore. He started going to work wearing loose pants, and it was soon that people in the office began rumoring about him. Even his assistant, who was always ready for him, was now scared to come near him. Seeing the look on her face, Nathan knew she was disgusted of him. And Nathan himself felt so disgusted seeing his condition. Eventually, Nathan's condition came to the point when he couldn't go to work and stayed at home. It was one night when he had gone to visit Monica. Seeing him, she too began to scream. Natalia rushed down to see Nathan in the servant quarters. "What is going on?" Madam, he's trying to take advantage of me. What? She's misunderstanding. I came to the kitchen to snack and she got scared. No, madam, please believe me. Monica, you're misunderstanding. Nathan is not like that. Nathan stormed to his room, feeling so humiliated. He felt so low and disgusted of himself. What was happening to him, and why was this happening to him? His life had changed from this one disease. He was no longer the man he used to be, and now the woman who used to desire him feared to be around him. The next day, Nathan spent in his room quietly, bearing through the pain. It was sometime in the evening. Natalia dropped by. Nathan, I'm taking Victor out to the park. We'll be back in an hour. Madam, please, may I go with you? I don't want to stay home alone. Nathan stared out the window, looking at his son waving at him. As he left with Natalia, and the maid too went with them. He was left all alone in the house. When Natalia returned home around 7, she sent Victor off with Monica and went to check on Nathan. But when she stepped into the room, she froze seeing him slouched on the chair, the bottle of pills laying empty beside him. Nathan had taken his own life. On the day of his funeral, many people arrived to mourn for the son of Naftali Bush. Mr. Naftali himself had come after so long, grieved to see his son no more. Natalia stood with Victor by his coffin, staring at her husband for the last few moments. You ruined my life, but I forgive you. Now I have no one except Victor. Thank you for everything, Nathan. Every time Natalia discovered Nathan's infidelity and lewdness, she felt like she was losing her mind. She couldn't take it anymore. She kept on thinking, how could she free herself from this miserable, suffocating, trapped life of humiliation? And it was one morning, while she was in the library reading, as she usually did, she came upon a book of the tales of Heracles and stopped upon the page of Nisus. One day, Nisus, a centaur and ferryman, was strolling down the river of Eunice, when Deianira, the beautiful wife of Heracles, wanted to cross the river. So she mounted Nisus's back, and he took her across. When he was doing so, he decided to try to abduct her and take her for himself. However, Heracles, who was nearby on the bank of the river, heard Deianira's cries. He drew his bow and shot Nisus with an arrow poisoned with the blood of Hydra. As Nisus lay, dying as the poison spread through his body, he told Deianira that her husband would never be faithful to her, and his blood would act as a love charm to ensure that Heracles would be true to her forever. So she collected his blood and kept it with her, but she truly loved Heracles, and she couldn't believe he would do such a thing to her. But some years later, Deianira discovered Heracles was having an affair with the young and beautiful Iole. In desperation, she spread Nisus's blood on Heracles' clothes in hope that it would bring him back to her. But when Heracles had left, Deianira accidentally spilled some of Nisus's blood on the floor, where it lay smoking in the light of dawn. She realized that Nisus had tricked her and that his blood would harm Heracles, so she sent a messenger to warn him. But it was too late. The shirt had burned Heracles. He took himself out to die a noble death on a pyre of oak branches. Where Zeus took him to Mount Olympus, where he was welcomed among the presence of the gods and goddesses. Reading the story, Natalia was inspired. She could do this. It was a perfect way to teach Nathan a lesson. So she went out into the woods behind her home, collecting some poisonous shumak leaves that caused horrible blistering and rashes. She rubbed them onto Nathan's undergarments, and despite all the treatment he tried, he could never cure himself. because Natalia continued to poison him. Now Victor will inherit everything, and I'll make sure to raise him so he never turns out to be like you. Click on the subscribe button and check out more awesome videos on our channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon because you know it's interesting.